Thank you. I would like to note for the record that there are no petitions before this hearing board today. If I can just have a 1 moment pause. We're having some technical difficulties with the YouTube. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. I apologize for that. I will now swear in that those that wish to provide testimony in any item on today's agenda. This includes any members of the public or APCD staff. Please turn on your video at this time and raise your right hand for the swearing in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the matter before this hearing board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we begin our administrative items as they appear actually on today's agenda, have we received any requests from members of the public that wish to address the board today?
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. We have not received any requests from members of the public to address the board under this item. However, if there are any members of the public on the teleconference line wishing to address the board under public communication, please raise your hand now by pressing #9 or using the raise hand feature on Zoom. Seeing that there are no hands raised, there are no members of the public wishing to provide public comment this morning, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. Well, if that is the case, now let's continue with item B on the agenda, which is the approval of minute orders for July 28th, 2022. The minute orders definitely have been posted, on the APCD website, as well as been distributed. Have the members of the board had an opportunity to review, and can anybody actually offer any comments?
I was able to look at it and I have no comments. It looks accurate to me.
Perfect. Any other comments? No. Well, if that is the case, can we now move to the approval of the July 28, 2022, the meeting, minutes of proceedings. Do I have a motion for approval?
I wasn't present at the meeting. Sorry, it took me a little bit to find my mute button, unmute button. And my only question is the presentation from petitioner on the progress update for the Point Loma water wastewater treatment plant. Is that presentation going to be part of the minutes or part of what's available online for the public?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yeah, it's just an administrative question.
Yes, that was actually, there was a motion taken the previous meeting to accept it as an exhibit, so it will be included in the final record.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Okay, so going back, definitely, to a motion. Do I get a motion for approval, of the minute orders for July 28, 2022?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Do I get a second?
I will second.
Okay. Well, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Member Gonzalez. Member Powers. Member Spencer.
Yes.
Vice Chair Schlick.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that item passes with all members present voting aye, with the exception of Member Gonzalez and members Powers that are not present for this portion of the meeting.
Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. So the next item on the agenda is a continuance of the teleconferencing meeting option pursuant to Government Code Section 5495 and within parentheses E. If you could please, Madam Clerk, show that, to everybody here, just to make sure, that we're addressing the correct item. By the way, this is also part, our agenda packet, and it's definitely very available, on the SharePoint site, on the website, for the APCD. Okay, so the idea here is that we actually need to consider in just, whether or not we will continue the opportunity actually to meet, via teleconferencing based, on the COVID cases, and the continuance, for this meeting option. I always defer, to the expert on this, the board, which is not Dr. Spencer, to provide us pretty much a current status on COVID cases, particularly in San Diego County. Dr. Spencer.
Yeah, so since the last meeting, the COVID case numbers have ticked down a little bit in terms of test positivity rate, and certainly the hospitals are not bursting at the seams as they once were. That said, I think even though the numbers have come down a little bit, the situation we're in can be more accurately described as a plateau. And I really think it needs to come down a bit more before we can really consider safely returning to in-person meetings. So that, and there's also no new guidance from any of our public health authorities. So my recommendation would be to continue meeting virtually for now until those things change.
Thank you very much, Dr. Spencer. Certainly, as you know, I'm as well part of the public health community. And certainly that is the established guidance. Not only locally in California, but certainly, in the United States. So I certainly agree, with your statements and definitely your commendation. Member Schlick, would you like to add any other words on that subject?
I would second Member Spencer's concerns.
So I believe that we actually have a motion from Dr. Spencer and then a second note by Vice Chair Schlick. So could you, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. Member Gonzalez, Member Powers, Member Spencer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Schlick.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That item passes with all members present voting aye, with the exception of members Gonzalez and Powers, who are not present for this portion of today's meeting.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And then item D, it's something that we have been working behind the scenes for a little while, before presenting, to not only the members of the board, but certainly, to our, the people, in the APCD. And this is the adoption of revised hearing board rules of procedure. So we're going to be opening, the discussion here. But I would like, to definitely carry it in a different manner, if you actually allow me to. So I would definitely like, for Emily, to provide some information about, board rules, for the hearing boards, that within California as well. Maybe the last time, that these board rules were revised. And certainly, definitely the initiative that we have taken, that behind the scenes to provide to you not only, the red line, but also the black, copy of the board rules that we want to present to you today. The idea here is not just not to vote on this today. These rules are going to be with us for some time, in the future. So therefore, I definitely want to propose that we exert caution in studying it with a forward-looking, the provision here, and then, and then have a follow-up meeting where we can discuss it openly, all the members of the board, and maybe a follow-up, meeting, to vote, on the final draft. So that is my proposal. But before actually we get, into the nitty-gritty, I would definitely like, for Council Helms, to address, the meeting today.
Good morning. So we started to undertake the updating the rules because, as Chair Rodriguez mentioned, they haven't been updated in quite some time since I think there's a lot of references to videotapes and a lot of outdated technologies. So we wanted to go through and just make sure they were up to date with the current times. We also did a survey of other hearing boards in the state just to see how they handled a few different issues. We thought they had some pretty good ideas, that they had also been more explicit about some issues that our rules were kind of vague on and had presented a few issues in the past. So that was basically the direction we took. And I would like to present these proposed revisions to the board and the district and the public for comment, and anything from your experience that you believe we need to address. So yeah, is that what you were looking for, Chair Rodriguez?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the other hearing boards, as you know, I mean, also have rules, and these are definitely public. I mean, on the public domain and available to anybody for review. And again, that due diligence definitely has paid dividends, as well as we have incorporated recommendations that we took from the most recent ARB training that we attended early in the year. Again, bringing this up, not also to meet the technology, but the way actually we try to conduct the business as well. So we're presenting to you, again, I mean, both the red line and the black, I mean, copy of it for comments, I mean, today. So I would definitely like, just to ask, I mean, that whether or not that you had any time, this is for the members of the board, I mean, to take a look at this, in cursory, and if you definitely want to weigh in on the proposed, I mean, the matter or the way of working that I'm proposing, which is definitely, let's open this today. Let's have at least one more meeting, where we can definitely capture everybody's comments on it. And then further on, I mean, a future meeting, where we can definitely vote on, again, the rules that will be with us for a little bit of time. So Dr. Spencer, what do you think about that?
Well, I guess my first thing is with rules of procedure and such, I will be very interested to know what our legal folks have to say about this. But I would imagine if it's been borrowed from, or if you leaned on other hearing boards and rules in the past and experience, that there won't be too much of an issue there. I definitely agreed with the need to update the language and the references to technology that are there. I don't know if we want to get into sort of a point-by-point discussion of this at this point, or if we're looking for just general comments to start off with, or.
I think just general comments.
Okay.
Just general comments right now.
Okay. And if this hasn't been updated in 20 years, then that definitely needs to be done, because I mean, even with our medical policies and procedures and practice guidelines that we have for everybody, those have to get updated every 3 years. So we're way behind if it's been this long.
That is definitely correct. Thank you definitely for your words, Dr. Spencer. I mean, Vice Chair Slick.
Yes, I did have a chance to look through the items provided. And just to be clear, for the Brown Act, when you say we've been working behind the scenes, it's been mostly your efforts and our council, right? This is
only one member of the board. I mean, definitely directly with council, directed with.
And this is the only time that we've been,
of the board.
And this is the only time we've been talking about it as a group. So I really like the plan that you've laid out, because definitely with a few members absent today, and I also want to make sure the public has had more than the 10 days or so that this agenda and item has been posted online. So I'm really glad to hear that this is just kind of the introduction of it. And then we're going to loop back in after we've been able to meet with the other members of the board, having a chance to weigh in on it. So I really like that plan. And overall, I just want to commend you and the Council for the Hearing Board for really providing, a really excellent and thorough, job at working on this. So yeah, I look forward to our board all weighing in on this huge endeavor, very huge. So good job, Chair Rodriguez.
Well, it was a labor of love, and it was a team. I mean, that's what we were able to accomplish. I mean, that's so much. So thank you so very much. I have definitely a question. I mean, that before we move to provide definitely the floor to the members of the APCD. Again, it's definitely looking at the Brown Act. I mean, is there a possibility, Emily, that we could provide a Word document for then the members of the board to maybe provide comment directly to you? on that element. Again, think about it.
No, let me, if you don't mind, I'll consider that and see how we could possibly achieve that in compliance with the Brown Act. It might take some doing, but I think there'd be a way to do that.
No, definitely appreciate this, because I mean, again, for these documents that I take a look at, particularly, I mean, commenting on FDA-driven documents, certainly that is the best way to capture all the comments, I mean, and where. So, I mean, definitely from an efficiency standpoint, it's very efficient, and I'm so sorry for the I don't know, soprano that I actually have in the background.
And I just wanted one other note that I think for the detailed comments, like Chair Rodriguez is mentioning, that providing your comments would be really useful there. But if you have any just general concerns about the way, I don't know, just even like concepts that you would like to see addressed, please let me know, and I can draft some language, and we can work on the bigger picture too.
Perfect. No, thank you so very much. I mean, so from the members of the APCD, I mean, are there any comments, I mean, and or questions in the way we're actually addressing this element?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. We do appreciate the opportunity to review these rules and get them up to speed over the next few meetings. We have had a chance to look through the proposed changes and discuss it, and we do have some thoughts that we'd like to share with Emily and with the board for some of the rules.
Sure. I mean, so definitely that's a general. We can definitely take that into consideration. I mean, right now, I mean, so it's open for everybody. So please don't go ahead. I mean, knowing though that this is going to be definitely segmented into making sure that we actually get to where we need to get efficiently as well. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so what I have prepared is just sort of a brief overview of some of the rules that we discussed where we have suggestions or comments for consideration. I'll just go in order in that case. The first rule is Rule 4, which is titled Minutes Preparation of Record. So our thoughts were that we would, recommend that the Air Pollution Control District's website could be mentioned in this rule as a location for viewing the meeting minutes.
But without the URL, though, this is only a mention because URLs tend to change. I mean, and that, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So something just without the URL in case of change. And so, for example, I mean, we were thinking even recommending a statement that could be added to the rule, such as the clerk of the hearing board shall post meeting minutes on the San Diego Air Pollution Control District's website as soon as possible. Something like that we feel might be, helpful information.
But
and again, that's a suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, the next rule is Rule 6, which is titled Disqualification of Hearing Board Members. And just wanted to point out that we've identified a typo, and it's in the second sentence. Any party that requests the disqualification is how the sentence starts. And there appears to be a typo at the end of the sentence because there's a phrase that states in the cannot be accorded. And so it looks like that could just be deleted if it is a typo or reworded. Yeah, just in case nobody else caught that. And then Rule 7 is titled Quorum. There also appears to be a typo in the second sentence. Very minor, the word requests should probably be singular as just request. And also there's a reference to Rule 17. And the title of that should be Petition for Emergency Variance rather than just Emergency Variance. Rule 9 is titled Effectiveness of Action. And this rule seemed like it could benefit if there was information added to it to include the fact that 4 board members are needed for a rehearing case that's at the board's discretion. That is from the Health and Safety Code 40821. And then Rule 13 is titled Request for Hearing. And In this particular rule, the thought was that perhaps the district address could be added as the location for filing petitions. And this is something that can be discussed in our upcoming meetings, but I just wanted to make a mention that that might be something to consider and change. And then also we had a suggestion that the clerk could review the rules and consider the deadlines in relation to the volume of material and distribution deadlines. For example, I think it currently states that 15 hard copies are needed. And then, and that's in, I'm sorry, that's Rule 13A. And then for
Yeah,
D,
it might, I would just like to chime in. Yeah, I remember, maybe it could just be, shall provide an electronic copy. Or, you know what I mean? Shall provide, or the 15 copies is because of people all sitting around a table, right? So, but even, you know, even if we're all in person, we can still get the copies digitally. So maybe just shall provide 15 copies or an electronic copy, something like that.
yeah, that's what the district was thinking, that that rule could just be given a quick once over and just sort of make sure that the hard copy requests and other details are really necessary.
Yeah, if that is so, then, you know, I mean, clerk of the board needs to take a look at if we truly need a hard copy, you know, I mean, maybe there's some cost associated administratively, you know, so that's something that I suggest, you know, for the clerk of the hearing board to take a look at that as well.
And then also for the same rule, Rule 13, request for hearing under section D, the last sentence states, it specifies any variance, and it might be better to clarify that it's an emergency variance. And then
I have that too.
okay, yeah, so please, anyone feel free to interject.
Was that the same rule, the 13, Rule 13?
Yes.
Yeah, I think in the, I'm seeing a cross out there of for a request for an emergency variance.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I think we're all on the same page then.
Correct.
Okay. And then Rule 14, contents of petitions. Under, it looks like section 8B, the notes state here that the section could be removed if it's no longer relevant. This is because it refers to margins, letter sizing, typing requirements, and it may or may not be obsolete. And then the other thing I want to mention here is that this rule may benefit for consideration for including a requirement to include the petition form as documentation to be filed. The form is titled San Diego County Air Pollution Control District Hearing Board Petition for Hearing Board Action. And in addition, the hearing board website has different forms referred to collectively as facts to support findings for the various types of petitions, as well as a form that's titled Proposed Compliance Schedules, and then in parentheses, increments of progress. And these forms are listed on the hearing board website currently under a section titled Forms and Information Needed for filing petitions. And so these are available for petitioners to view or print.
So that's a very good point. I mean, because then whatever revisions, I mean, when you're versioning up these forms, you know, then we can actually direct everybody to the website. So that's good. I like that.
Okay.
Okay, so just to be clear, is the comment to direct people to the website in order to view the forms, or was there something?
No, I would actually say, no, I mean, that you can direct maybe, you know, I mean, to the website and then list the forms. I would still list the forms. The title of the forms need to be listed.
Okay.
Whatever version they're using currently, I mean, it is the current version of that form, which then the district needs to keep up, with them and make sure that that is the current and correct form.
What I do like about the rule, about the contents of petitions here, is that regardless of what forms may or may not be up on the website, it just is a handy, a listing of the legal things that we need to consider as a hearing board, all in one spot for us, right? Because partly the rules of the hearing board are to guide us as the board members. And so, I don't want us to take away anything that's listed here, but certainly if we're adding just as, maybe a footnote, even there are helpful forms to help petitioners, comply with these contents available at the Air Pollution Control District website. But maybe more like a footnote or something. That's
So,
my comments. That's just my input.
Yeah, I personally, I don't like the footnotes, because it all depends on the printing, just saying. How you actually have to set that the printout, so I guess I got bitten for that. But Mary, are you going to be supplying, your comments on the document, to Mary?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me, Vilmarie? Am I going to be
Yes,
supplying my comments to who?
Yeah. To Emily.
I certainly can. Yeah, if you would like me to do that, Emily, I can.
That would be
give you a
very
list.
useful. Thank you. I think I'm enjoying. It's very useful to hear you explain them, but I think it would also be very useful to see any proposed revisions. So that would be great. Available. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
So do you have a Word document where you can actually do your comments, under, track changes?
We currently have one. Let me consider what the best way to distribute that would be. But yes, we do have one.
Because
that would be helpful.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been there before. So yeah.
We could see then everybody's position and understanding. That's for each one of the comments made. And when we come, to the next meeting, we can all see everybody's comments. And then we can hone in on every single rule, one by one. I think that will be a really very good thing, and then go item by item.
Great.
Sorry about that, Mary. I kind of distracted you on that one for a second.
No, that's great. Good input. Okay, so Rule 15 is titled Petitions for Regular Variance, and we just wanted to suggest that the title of the rule could be changed to just read Variance, singular, to match with Rule 16 and 17 titles.
Yeah, consistency.
And then under that same Rule 15, 8D, it might be helpful if a clarification for when increments of progress or compliance schedules are required could be included in that section if helpful. And then 8G, we have a request to, if possible, state the amount of emission and excess emissions, if any, in the units of measure specified on the permit to operate or regulation. So we're just looking for consistency in units if possible.
Good point.
On that one. And then for Rule 16, which is petition for interim variances, I have here in my notes that the rule number for petition for regular variance just needs to be corrected to Rule 15 rather than Rule 12. It's in the last sentence.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
Okay, and then Rule 17 is titled Petition for Emergency Variance. So this rule does appropriately reference Rule 13, subsection D, which is in regard to Rule 13 is titled Request for Hearing. And so our thoughts were that it would just be ideal or perhaps convenient to also include here or to directly restate that information from Rule 13D. To restate it again, just because we feel it's pretty important information. And that Rule 13D for emergency variances, what it states is that a request for an emergency variance shall be initiated by calling or contacting the APCO, and that the petition can be filed and served, pursuant to the subsection A of that rule, and the fee can be paid. And then the important part is it states not later than the second working day following the initial contact of the APCO. And then it states if so filed and the fee is timely paid, any variance, and this is where I would have earlier suggested any emergency variance, just to clarify, granted may become effective as early as the date of initial contact, since that's sort of an exception.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that same rule, Rule 17, petition for emergency variance, section B2, could provide just a simple clarification that an emergency is also to be considered an unforeseen event. And then the last comment for this rule is that in reading through it, the rule didn't seem to distinguish between District Rule 98 and District Rule 97. So as written, the distinction between an emergency variance due to a breakdown, which would follow District Rule 98, and an emergency variance that is not due to a breakdown, which would be Rule 97, is just not mentioned. So that might be helpful.
You're correct on that one. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and then Rule 18 is about permit appeals. And so the suggestion here, just to avoid confusion really for possible petitioners, this rule could clarify that the board isn't authorized to change permit conditions, actual conditions. And the basis for that is Health and Safety Code section 42309, which is titled Remedies of the Hearing Board. And so our thoughts were that this rule on permit appeals could also reference 42309. And it could also have a reference to District Rule 25, which is titled Appeals, which might also be helpful.
Yeah, the comments that you're making, definitely I would like to have higher up, particularly on the conditions of the permit. Yeah, so this is really very clear, which is usually the confusion, from the petitioner. Yep. Good job.
Okay, and then for Rule 19, that's titled Amendments. Suggestion that the term petition that's used in this rule could be the term application could be substituted for the term petition to be more consistent with the other rules. And it's used throughout Rule 19. And then another suggestion, there's a phrase that could use some clarification. The phrase is submitted for decision. And so if this means that the amendment is to be submitted prior to the hearing date, then it might be helpful if that was just directly stated in the rule, rather than saying submitted for decision.
Yeah, I thought that we're going to be parking ourselves kind of on this one for a while. That's what I think. I just have a couple more rules here. I think about 5 more. Just give you an update. So Rule 20 is titled Answers. Mm-hmm.
So this section states that answers are to be filed 5 working days prior to the hearing. However, typically the documentation is provided 7 calendar days prior to the hearing, and that is described in Hearing Board Rule 21, which is entitled Submitted Material. So this rule, Rule 20, maybe it could be reconciled for the deadlines within Rule 20 itself, as well as with Rule 21, and as well as with the APCD Hearing Board annual calendar that lists the different filing deadlines. Rule 21 is titled Submitted Material. And for clarification, this rule could inform perhaps of exceptions of what types of materials are not subject to this rule. For example, petitions, answers, amendments, slides, and so forth. Rule 22 is titled Notice of Hearing.
Mary,
the rules. Yes?
I'm so sorry. Just a question. Maybe I just missed something. So, on Rule 21, you indicated that we should include exceptions. Okay. But you said slides and presentations would be exempted from the submitted material. Did I hear that right?
If that's the board's intention, then yes. I was just suggesting that it differentiates between amendments and petitions and answers and, slides,
Okay.
which I think we have some comments on coming up on Rule 23 under hearing presentations.
Okay, so maybe that will make a little bit sense now when we take those two together.
I think that might be the case.
Okay.
But I think the point is that I think submitted material is a new rule, and because there's other rules regarding documentation, it might be helpful just to better define the applicability of submitted material, since there's different types and different timelines.
And yeah, let's take a look at that. So make it really very linear, because I did find also a big discrepancy, on a different rule, and I was confused. So yeah, good point. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Rule 22 is titled Notice of Hearing. The first sentence states that the clerk of the hearing board shall deliver a notice of the hearing per the requirements of the Health and Safety Code. The sentence could be edited to add a reference to the relevant sections of the Health and Safety Code and/or give some of the deadlines for filing. And this could be, in particular, this could be important for interim variance, because that one only requires a reasonable notice per the Health and Safety Code, but the hearing board has typically interpreted it to be a 10-day notice. So some clarification and links to the Health and Safety Code there might be a benefit there. And then Rule 23 is titled Hearing Presentations. And here the comment that we have is the rule should clarify if slides need to be submitted per Rule 21, which is titled Submitted Material 7 days prior to the hearing. And then Rule 29, continuances. In Section A, the reference to Rule 23 should be corrected to Rule 29, and that is near the end. Rule 30 is titled Withdrawal of Petition or Appeal.
Mm-hmm.
And just a suggestion, if possible, to allow the use of email, if that's legally allowable in that case. And then, so Rule 32 prompted a lot of internal discussion, and I was wondering if maybe perhaps Emily or Bill Marie, if you could clarify what do we mean by the term findings in this rule?
I've been taking copious notes. I don't actually have it pulled up in front of me. So let me pull that.
Do you have it, Mia? Because I do have it. I'm actually going down. I'm reading with you, by the way, as you're actually itemizing each one of those.
Which item are we on again? Because I'm trying to, we're going rather fast. So where are we? Thank you.
So this is Rule 32, which is titled Findings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, see if I can find the page on the agenda packet.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Looks like it might be page 20 or thereabouts.
Yeah, 19 or 22.
Or 19.
Yeah, 19 or 22. And it's on the, we're showing that right now. And this is the red line. Yeah.
Okay, so this is intended to address if if written findings are requested by a petitioner. Does that clarify?
That helps a little bit. So written findings, and when you say findings, Emily, is that in reference to the 6 formal findings to grant an emergency variance then?
It would include that, yes.
Okay. So I think our thoughts, now that you've explained, we read through the rule and we just weren't sure, when it applied. And so maybe some references to the Health and Safety Code would make it more clear for
my
reader.
understanding as a hearing board member is a request for formal written findings is going to be if the party plans to appeal the findings. So that would be they would kind of know already that it's going in that direction if they're not going to be happy with the findings. So and that they, would maybe want to appeal them. So that's my understanding. It's not something that typically, if a party, has been able to get findings that they like, or that they're willing to comply with, or that they've worked on, developing, it's more if a party is planning to appeal the findings.
Okay, that would make sense. I think in reading through it, we just weren't really able to understand maybe when it would be used. And so maybe to preface it with a little bit of brief background might be helpful.
Well, so they can be requested at any time. So if the petitioner if they want written findings, they can request them. I think that's the intent behind the provision. So it doesn't really have any particular application. It's just when requested.
So maybe some sort of, maybe an explanation of what findings, that we're referring to.
Sure.
Maybe because definitely there's reference to health and safety code, but again, legal terminology, that's, maybe a little of clarification might be warranted. Good point. Good point.
Okay, thank you. So Rule 33, this one is titled Compliance Schedules.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could also consider including section 42-357 of the Health and Safety Code. So this is applicable when modifying a schedule of increments of progress or a final compliance date that's due to good cause. Because this rule currently, it does reference section 42-356. And so 42-357 also seems like it should have some mention in the compliance schedule as well. So Rule 34 is titled Decision. And our thoughts on this one is that the rule, it could be updated to include information about board orders being posted and available on the district's website. Just no URL, but vaguely mentioned. And then Rule 35 is titled Effective Date of Decision. And so in Section A, this section states, the rule states that the board's decision shall be effective on the date issued by the hearing board. However, emergency variances can be effective up to 2 business days prior to the date that the APCO was notified if variance is granted. So this could be identified as an exception. And then finally, Rule 36 is titled Rehearing. And in Section D, this section could reference Health and Safety Code Section 40821, which specifies that the board, when initiating a rehearing at its discretion, shall have a board with not fewer than 4 members. And let's see if there's anything I missed here. No, that's all of our comments. Thank you for the opportunity to share them. Just 20 rules.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I love these exercises, because that definitely provides clarity and even a reminder of, that moment in time, when these rules were adopted, and then, the new rules, revision. So we should actually be doing this a little bit more often. So maybe, that could be another rule, to be honest with you. I would like to do this. I mean, no less than 5 years personally, because, context changes and things of that nature. So it's a review, not necessarily, a revision, but just a review. But that's just not my position on that one. So, Mary, provided that Emily gives you, the Word document, that can you then insert your comments, and then Emily, if she does that, could we as members of the board get, the comments from APCD?
Yes, we would just need to, obviously everything would need to be included in an agenda packet.
Correct. 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 I mean, that just to make sure that again, I mean, that you have, kind of the first cut, everybody does have that. I mean, now we can add, the APCD. And then, I mean, I believe, it prepares us as member of the board, I mean, that to definitely take a look at these rules, not only from our perspective on how, the business of the board is going to be conducted, but also, I mean, the petitioner, because there are definitely rules here, that provide guidance to petitioners as well. So this is a very good exercise. Good, thank you so very much. I mean, that I'm going to have, I mean, that definitely APCD and county council, for the hearing board, I mean, to work on those deadlines and things of that nature. Right now, I have then a question. I mean, the members of the board, I think, that if we take about 30 days to review the future, I guess, I mean, the revision to the orders as been discussed over here, and I think that will be a good time, to then start adding our comments and then come back here then to talk about the rules one by one. So 30 days now from the next meeting, I mean, Mia, Madam Clerk, where does that put us? Hi, Mia. And I know you're listening, but I can't see you're on mute though. I mean, so 30 days from now, I mean,
that would approximately be September 22nd.
Okay. I mean, so September 22nd, then maybe we can then devote, I mean, time to go over the revisions of these rules. I mean, and then at that point in time, we can go one by one, I mean, on that day. Members of the board, I mean, that Dr. Schlick, I mean, excuse me, Member Schlick, I mean, and Dr. Spencer, comments on that one?
That sounds like a really good plan.
Good.
I would agree.
Thank you so very much. So Mia, certainly, I mean, that we can move on that. I mean, as right now, I mean, so noticing and all the little details, so please, I mean, reach out to the other members of the board. I mean, that Mr. Powers and Mr. Gonzalez, I mean, on what is it that we expect, and so that we can deliver on the substance, I mean, of this hearing revision in 30 days from now. Sounds good. Well, actually, September 27th, rather. Perfect. So I do not believe, that definitely requires a vote, by the board. I mean, because now we're noticing, we're just not instructing. I mean, that Madam Clerk to do that. I mean, are there any comments? I think we have a plan. Good. Clarity on the expectations. I mean, is everybody clear? I mean, I'm talking about APCD, County Council, and Madam Clerk.
So I'm looking at our order of business, and since item D was entitled Adoption of Revised Hearing Board Rules of Procedure, probably we need to officially, continue that matter, or something like that, because we haven't adopted, we've kind of received and kind of initially reviewed. But it's, this is a big job that we're doing. So it's a big process. And so I don't know, I guess I would move to, to continue this item till that date that you laid out earlier, something like that.
I mean,
Emily.
Before we go, let's actually go to Emily, please.
I just wanted to address, I think that was just a noticing hiccup. But I think I agree, it does say adopt. So perhaps we could say, and even if we don't have to come up with a firm date for adoption, we could even say move to continue to a later date, whatever the board decides there.
Yeah. I mean, that let's, for future, let's not actually use adoption, because I mean, that definitely confirms that, the action that we expected of us. I mean, so I would actually say, review and revision, or something like that. I mean, of the hearing, board rules of procedure. So definitely you're correct. I mean, Member Schlick, so on that one. So actually you move, to continue. And then, I mean, I can definitely second Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Member Gonzalez? Member Powers? Member Spencer?
Yes.
Vice Chair Schlick?
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez?
Yes.
Madam Chair, that item has been moved to continue discussion and revision to September 22nd. With all members present voting aye, with the exception of members Gonzalez and members Powers, who are not present for this portion of today's meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. And thank you, Member Schlick, for that. Eagle eyes, so that's good. Any other, the activities, or business, that to present in front of the board today?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for their careful attention to this. It's really helpful, and I think it's going to really benefit our board. So thank you.
We bring it to the current century. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, just one moment.
Please do.
Just a gentle reminder that all revisions would need to be submitted to the clerk of the board's office for distribution no later than September 15th for the for distribution at 9 a.m.
Good.
Thank you.
So I think, that we need, a little table, to be communicated, so if we can help with that, could you please reach out to the members of the board and tell them, this is what we're going to be doing on September 22nd. By this day, you need to do this. By that day, you need to be on. So, and that, I think that will help greatly. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Great point. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, just for clarification, would this be the revisions as provided by the district staff to council, or and then moving forward, would the board then be reviewing those revisions?
I would actually say, that this, provided that Emily can distribute, that those revisions, including those presented today, by APCD, then we as members of the board should be able then, to at least review and make revisions accordingly. So when we come back on the 22nd, we would have definitely a whole gamut, and no more delays on that element. So if she, again, Emily is going to check, to see if she can actually distribute those, that via Word, and then using track changes, we can be very efficient on that moment as well. Good. Anything else? Perfect. Well, if that is the case, then so thank you, everybody. This concludes the business for today. And the next meeting of the APCD hearing board will take place on August 25th, 2022 at 9 a.m. I know that Member Schlick, will be definitely chairing that meeting. I'm going to take, some PTO. I will be in some beach in Puerto Rico. So, I'll see you next time when I get back. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.